Hello, everybody. This is Nicholas Coley with Sweet Georgia Sports, and today I'm here to talk to you all about the Atlanta Falcons as they are headed into training camp next week, starting on Wednesday, July 26th. Now, I'm going to talk about an array of topics going from position battles, how I think the team will perform, do I think they'll suffer from a Super Bowl hangover, and just the team overall. So I'm going to start out with some position battles. Now, we do know there are position battles at right guard involving Wes Schweitzer and Ben Garland. We know there is a position battle at that weak side linebacker spot involving Kamal Ishmael and Duke Riley. And we also know there's some competition at safety, or nickelback position with DeMonte Casey and Brian Poole, and there may even be potentially position battles at that safety spot between Ricardo Allen and DeMonte Casey. And we also know there is competition at that kick returner spot as Eric Weems, who was the team's sole kick returner and punt returner last year, is no longer with the team as he signed a contract with the Tennessee Titans this offseason. So today, I'm going to start with that right guard spot. That is probably the most critical position battle for the team this offseason, as Chris Chester retired last year and he held on to that starting gig for 2 seasons. He's gone, and so we're going to see a completely new face at that position. This is very interesting, folks, because neither of these guys have started full time at a position on either side of the ball, because as we all know, Ben Garland did play some defense, but Ben Garland has an advantage is he actually saw activity on every single game day last year for the team. He did see play time on the defensive line. He saw some snaps at center for one play, I believe, in the playoffs when Alex Mack went down. I do believe he got some other offensive line playing time throughout the season. Wes, on the other hand, was a guy who the team did draft with probably hopes of starting somewhere along the offensive line at one point. He didn't see any active game day roster participation last year. He was never on the game day 46, but he did stick around. If the team didn't think he had potential, it's likelihood he would have been cut or placed on the practice squad. Neither of those things happened. The team liked him enough to keep him on the 53, just not enough to actually activate him on game day. We saw the team do this with Justin Hardy a couple years ago. We saw the team, the team has done this before. They did it with Rashid Hageman several games as well. Dan Quinn has been a guy who, if you don't fit into his game day plans, you're not going to play. Now, this might be an indictment on Schweitzer not being ready, or it might just be the team didn't see his value on any game days. Schweitzer could be fine. I don't know who'll start here. I'm going with West just because I believe the team, they drafted him for the sole purpose of starting, while I see Ben Garland as more of a guy who the team likes to use in a backup role that they know they can plug in at various spots on both sides of the ball and get effective play. So now I'm going to move over to the weak side linebacker side, as Devondre Campbell was confirmed to get that starting gig at strong side linebacker. Duke Riley, who did play that position in college, he'll be playing weak side in the NFL, at least for now. So Kamal is a guy who has been a career backup, but a guy who has started several games due to injuries and other things going on. And has been a guy who's been pretty effective as a jack of all trades type of player, but the team confirmed his move to linebacker this offseason after they re-signed him. And Duke Riley, on the other hand, is a guy the Falcons drafted in the second round. Now, the team has been very high on Duke Riley. Duke he's a good player, played really good college ball at LSU, although he only has 1 year starting experience from college. The Falcons faced that same situation with Deion Jones last year, and everything worked out fine. I do believe the Falcons drafted Duke Riley to start. I don't know if Duke Riley will see starting time right away due to him being a rookie and maybe not just being ready to get out there yet. But I do believe at some point this season Duke Riley will start, as I just believe the team prefers Kamal in that backup role where they can use him all over the defense at multiple spots. So now I'm going to move over to the nickel corner spot, which is a competition that I believe is mainly in between Brian Poole and DeMonte Casey. Now, I do think Brian Poole has the hands up on this position just because he has a full year of starting there from last season, from playoff games to the Super Bowl regular season. He has the hands up. Now, DeMonte Casey, he's a 5th-round pick, and as talented as this guy is and as much potential that he has, I just don't believe he'll be ready to get that starting spot. Obviously, training camp, it'll open our eyes and we'll see what will truly become of Casey. But as for right now, I just think Brian Poole gets the starting good because of experience and overall familiarity in this defense. So now that I've kind of covered position battles for the most part, and I know there's probably several other position battles going on, I'm going to move on. I want to talk about some player expectations, especially for like the new guys that have come in, such as the Dontari Poe. Dontari Poe is the guy who performed very well in Kansas City, but did see a decline the past couple seasons due to injuries, so, dealing with his back. And he also played a lot of snaps. I believe he played over 90% of the snaps in Kansas City. That's something that he won't have to do in Atlanta due to Dan Quinn favoring rotating his defensive linemen more. And just the team, they have more depth at that position where I don't believe they'll need to rely on him to that extent. I believe we'll see his snaps drop dramatically, which will in turn let him be more effective as he'll be more rested. I do expect Dontari Poe to come in and play very good football, especially with that young talent surrounding him with guys like Vic Beasley, Grady Jarrett, and Adrian Claiborne. And talking about this Falcons defensive line, man, there's a lot of talent on it with Vic Beasley, with Grady Jarrett, with Dontari Poe, as previously mentioned, with Adrian Claiborne. And then we also have the return of Derek Shelby. We have Rashid Hageman. And overall, I believe this line is probably in its best state that it's been in a long while, which is, a good thing. It's always a good thing to have depth and young guys on your line and guys that can play. Now, Shelby was a guy, while he was playing last year, he wasn't very good to start the season off, but when he did start to get things going, he got hurt and missed the rest of the season. That obviously wasn't good, but I do think, Shelby, he'll be in an interesting situation as he'll be returning from a pretty bad injury, and see how he'll step in right away and see if he can be effective, or will he be dealing with a bit of an injury, rust. Same with Adrian Claiborne, who dealt with injuries last year as well and ended up missing the playoffs. And talking about injuries, we also have Desmond Trufant returning from injury. Trufant is obviously an elite corner, as he did get paid a lot of money this offseason. I don't remember the exact details of the contract. I believe it was 5 years, $70 million. It was a big contract for a very good player. Desmond Trufant, he got a lot of flack last year, I think, for not being as good as usual, and that's a fair criticism. Desmond Trufant probably wasn't having his best season last year, but the thing is, his not best season was still very good and better than most. Guys like Desmond Trufant, you don't let him walk. You don't let him go to another team, because players like him, they're very important to playoff runs and defenses as a whole. You need a great corner on your defense. You need a guy who's capable of taking number one receivers out of games, or taking a team's number one receiver out of a game. And Desmond Trufant is very capable of doing so. The Falcons actually have they have good cornerback depth with Robert Alford, Jalen Collins, and Brian Poole, and they have good safeties as well with Ricardo Allen and Keanu Neal. The secondary is not, much cause of concern, and this defense as a whole is probably going into its best state as it has in a while, at least as long as Matt Ryan's been here. This has the potential to be his best defense. Now, I'm not saying these guys are going to be top 5 or top 3 or anything like that. I don't even know if they'll be top 10 yet, but I do think this defense has top 10 potential just because of all the talent and all the what's the word I'm looking for? All the experience they have together, all the chemistry they have together. It'll be interesting to see how they start off this season, but especially as strong as they finish this season, I'm very interested to see how they start the season off. And as speaking about performance, I want to talk about the offensive performance. Now, obviously, the offense lost Kyle Shanahan, who was a great play caller, a great offensive coordinator, and had this innate ability to manipulate even the best of defenses in the NFL. I don't know how he did it. And the Falcons, obviously Shanahan went on to go become the head coach of the 49ers, which is great for him. I wish him the best. I have no ill will towards Shanahan, despite how many fans feel about his play calling in the Super Bowl. I will come out and defend Shanahan, saying he only did what got him there. He didn't give up on whatever he did during the regular season, throwing the ball more than he ran the ball. That was his way. That's the way Shanahan did things, and he didn't betray that. He didn't betray his usual play calling. Obviously, things didn't work out. That stinks, but the team, I'm sure, has moved on, as that's the only choice they have, right? But anyways, he's been replaced with Steve Sarkisian. Now, Sarkisian is a very talented play caller, but this is also his very first year in the NFL, at least at this position as an offensive coordinator in the NFL. He's never held this title before. He's never done this before. And so I do not believe the offense will be as good as they were last year, as regressing is kind of a natural thing, especially when they were as good. I mean, the Falcons' offense last year was historically good. They were historically great, one of the best offenses ever. Now, I don't think they need to be that good again to make a Super Bowl run, especially if the defense can improve and progress to where a lot of fans think they are capable of doing, and analysts as well. If the offense, but I do think this offense is talented enough to be top 10, especially with Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, Mohamed Sanu, Taylor Gabriel, Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman. I think this offense will be fine. I don't think they'll be top 5, but I do think they'll be top 10, which is completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And a top 10 offense with a top 10 defense is really all you want from a team. That's a team that's capable of making a Super Bowl run. Now, talking about the Super Bowl, I do want to talk about the potential for a Super Bowl hangover. I don't, obviously there have been teams that have faced this just as recently with the Panthers as last year. We saw a massive Super Bowl hangover. And I know, obviously, speaking as a Falcons fan, this is going to come off as biased, but I do not think the Falcons will face such a decline, because I do think this team, they saw the holes they had, and they filled them. They said, hey, our defensive line isn't strong enough. They go out and add Poe, which was really the only major improvement on this team, because once you look at it in the grand scheme of things, how much did the Falcons improve? I do think other teams in the NFC South improved more than the Falcons, but to argue on the Falcons side, I do not think the Falcons had much to improve, if that makes sense. This offense was talented. This defense, yes, they obviously need to improve from their performance last year. I believe they were 26 in defensive DVOA. But the thing about this defense was it was a lot of young guys. It was multiple rookies starting, guys who didn't have much starting experience at all. It was full of first year and second year players. Naturally, these guys are going to get better. At least we hope so, right? So I do think with the natural improvement of the defense, the Falcons got better. But as far as adding guys on the squad, no, they didn't add a whole plethora of talent to get better. They didn't, right? And they drafted well, I believe, but they also didn't draft guys who are going to come in here and play right away. Even with Tack McKinley, and I mean, the thing is, the Falcons, they don't need these rookies to come in and perform right away because they already have a lot of guys starting. They already have a lot of talent. They don't need their rookies to come in and step in and perform right away. And that's really a virtue of having a good football team. Good football teams don't need instant production from their rookies. They need, and that's beautiful, right? Because these rookies can actually develop, and by the time you do need them to produce, they're ready and they come on and they go right away, right? So now I kind of want to go into how I think the Falcons will perform this season. Now, I don't have their schedule right in front of me, but I do know they're playing teams such as the Patriots, Packers, Seahawks, and so on, Dallas in the Dome, right? And then obviously they have to play the Saints, Panthers, and Tampa Bay twice, all teams that I think got a lot better from last season. So I do think the Falcons, they have a tough schedule last year. And I think before we're even talking about this team winning the NFC as a whole or getting home field advantage in the NFC playoffs, we need to talk about them coming out of the NFC South. That won't be an easy task with the Panthers, with Tampa Bay, and with the Saints. Now, I don't think Carolina got better majorly, but that's always been a tough game for the Falcons. I do think the team to watch out for in the NFC South is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the Falcons won 11 games last season, I believe, right? Either 11 or 10. I do think that's most likely around the wins they'll get this season just due to the difficulty of the schedule. But I do think the team will be better, right? I think this Falcons team, they will be better, but their record might not show it. But records aren't everything when it comes to playoffs. Yes, records are important as getting home field advantage and all of that. But good teams, good playoff teams, they can win on the road, right? If you're worried about your team being able to win a road playoff game, well, maybe they're just not as good as you thought they were. But that's really all I have to say about the Falcons heading into training camp. Obviously, as training camp goes on and we see more of these position battles kind of start to balance out, and we hear more news coming out, and God forbid any injuries, we'll have more of a view on where this team will be as we head from training camp into preseason. But that's all I have to say about the Falcons today. I will have to say more, like I said, but for today, that's all. But this is Nicholas Coley with Sweet Georgia Sports. Thank you for listening. I know this video was kind of long, but go watch our other content. We have some great content about the Braves and the Hawks on the YouTube channel as well. But thank you for listening. I will talk to you guys later.